Metal Massacre is Man vs. Machine's hardest achievement. Actually, that's not quite right. Metal Massacre is the hardest achievement in the entirety of TF2. 1 million robots. That's a lot. In fact, I don't think you guys truly understand just how incomprehensibly high that number is. So let me clue you in. There are die-hard MvM players with over 1,000 tours who still do not have this achievement. Steam might say otherwise, but considering another achievement that requires 1/10 of the effort has the same completion rate, I think ol' Sam's been getting his steps in. It does raise an interesting question though. How long does it actually take to get Metal Massacre? Most discussions surrounding this achievement typically base themselves around the average player experience jacked up to an absurd degree. Just recently, Great Blue in particular came to the conclusion that should you farm every achievement in the game, Metal Massacre alone makes up around 2/3 of the total amount of time. But you know what? I think that's bullshit. Maybe not for your average plebeian, but for a peak performance Chad gamer such as myself, we can get that number down. So how do we do that exactly? Well, we can use a custom script to spawn 1 million scouts with 1 HP, build a sentry and dispenser right next to each other, type plus attack in console, take a flight to Thailand for a couple of days, come back, bada bing bada boom, achievement done. But that is shit content. So today we're going to take a different path and add some restrictions to make this video more interesting. Those being, no hacks, no in-game cheats, no bot farm servers, no community servers, and no custom missions. Anything possible in Man Up or Boot Camp is privy to optimization, everything else is not. Okay? Okay. If we're gonna commit ourselves to a mass robo-oblivion, we better forge ourselves a bot farm that'll cut through them like butter. From what I've gathered, there are 5 key factors we need set for optimization. Those being class, weapons, map, strategy, and mission. The more we can trivialize this amalgamation of traits, the more bots we'll be able to kill. So let's go through them one by one. Every class in Man vs. Machine is on a spectrum in relation to how well they can perform specific tasks. Demo's the best for medic killing, Heavy's the best for giant shredding, Scout's the best for money collecting, Pyro's the best for getting kicked, everyone has a specialty. For this challenge in particular, we're gonna need a class that can do large amounts of damage in broad amounts of space. In other words, AoE damage. With this in mind, let's start trimming the fat. Spy is 100% out of the running for this challenge. He functions almost exclusively as a giant killer as his crowd control abilities are virtually non-existent. Yes, he has a sapper, but until a time bomb upgrade is given to it, this doesn't really aid his kill potential all that much. Medic is also an obvious unviable choice, but in this department he is actually more worthwhile than Spy. The shield upgrade does 150 DPS when maxed out, and covers the entirety of the medic's field of view. Combine this with the quick fix for jacked up shield generation, and you can fizzle out massive clusters of robots if positioned accordingly. But it's medic. It'd be pretty ridiculous if the healer was simultaneously the best at AoE damage, so thank God he isn't. The next cut we're making is the Scout, and no, contrary to popular belief, Scout's damage output is not the issue here. In fact, if played properly, he can top the meters. The main issue with Scout is that he's almost exclusively single target based, as he has no real damaging AoE abilities. Combine that with the far higher credit threshold to achieve maximum DPS relative to the other single target classes, Scout just can't really keep up. And speaking of single target classes, Heavy is also out of the running. That's not to say he's bad. His damage output is so monstrously high and his downtime so non-existent, he can dish out kills and move on to the next target faster than anybody. This means that when the robots are trickling onto the field, he's top of the class. Unfortunately for him, the vast majority of small robots drop down in sizable clumps rather than one by one. In these situations, bullet penetration is all he's got, a far cry from the potential that other classes possess. Similarly, Engineer also falls into this category. Monstrous single target DPS, but with very little AoE to compensate. He is much more versatile thanks to the Rescue Ranger, Wrangler, and added leniency of the Sentry's auto-aiming, but the big packs still remain an issue, so he's also gonna sit this one out. We're now at the point where cuts are getting a bit tougher, as the next few classes all have great crowd control, but we do have to narrow ourselves down, and the first of these casualties is the Demo Man. This might come as a bit of a shock, seeing as he's probably the single best mission counterpick in the entire game. However, most of that utility comes in the form of one-shotting giants with his ecosystems of crit stickies, rather than on-the-fly adaptability. I think no matter what weapon you choose, he just can't compete. The stock sticky launcher has considerably less damage output than a rocket launcher or sniper rifle, and the Scottish Resistance's extra bomb detonation time will result in a lot of missed kills that many other classes would easily net. Not a terrible choice, but we can do better. Next up is Pyro. Gas Passer. I've talked about this weapon a lot, so I won't sink my teeth in too sharply here, but Explode on Ignite is an upgrade so goddamn broken that community-made missions have elected to disable it entirely because its mere existence is a balancing nightmare. This upgrade single-handedly moves Pyro from a blatant write-off for this challenge to a potential pick, but nonetheless I've decided to exclude him. As overpowered as the Gas Passer really is, you don't always have it, and while Pyro's other damage sources are fine, they don't close the gap enough to warrant him taking the top spot. So that leaves us with two classes for the taking, the Soldier and the Sniper. So let's go through their strengths one by one. The Soldier has great damage on direct hit, a forgiving playstyle thanks to the existence of splash damage, the Rocket Specialist upgrade that removes all damage fall off, he has banners to increase his DPS or survivability, and can rocket jump to wherever he needs to be at any given time. The Sniper has explosive headshot. Sniper wins. Yeah, to me, this really wasn't a controversial pick. Sniper has the highest skill ceiling of any class in the game, and that translates over to MvM quite handily. You just can't contend with the power that is Explosive Headshot. This upgrade on its own is probably the most influential upgrade in the entire game. It allows Sniper to deal with any group of robots, no matter their health, speed, or size. The only drawback to Sniper is the sporadic movements of the AI take some getting used to, but that's a small hill to trudge over in exchange for so much power at the helm. So yeah, Sniper's the best, and I don't think there's much debate on that. Alright, let's cut to the chase. The Heatmaker blows every single rifle out of the fucking water. The focus meter allows you to continuously shoot while scoped in, meaning you don't have to spend any time readjusting your aim like you would with the other rifles. This increases the amount of headshots we can put out over the course of a game, thereby netting us more kills than we otherwise would get. Oh, and you can activate this state whenever you want so long as the bar isn't empty. So discounting any periods of the robots running late for work, you're effectively in a permanent state of staying scoped in. The Heatmaker's only drawback is the decreased amount of damage on body shots. But remember, you're not doing this challenge. A Chad is, and Chads never body shot. As for the best secondary and melee, you'll want the Girardi to slow down the Super Scouts and the Stock Knife or any of its reskins to deal with any of the spy bots that get in your face. But as we'll come to learn, these two items won't really mean much in the grand scheme of things. Now, if you are a particularly observant viewer, you may be asking, why is the map so important? I mean, it shouldn't matter. Just pick the mission with the most amount of robots, and that should give us the best results, right? And in theory, yes, but in actuality, these map discrepancies matter more than you'd think. Take the Heavy, for example. He'll have a far easier time killing robots on a linear map like Decoy or Coal Town, rather than the multi-leveled Manhattan, where both his field of view and damage output are occasionally hindered. These map-based variations impact the classes in many different ways. For AoE classes in particular, the prime factor being meddled with is mob density. Let me give you an example. On the left side of Rottenburg, you have small robot demos alongside a couple giants dropping onto the field. On the right side, there are swarms of huntsman bots and flying samurai demos doing the same. In this case, the mob density is extremely loose, and thus you won't be able to capitalize on your AoE abilities as much as you'd like to. Meanwhile, look at this wave on Decoy. All of the robots are dropping off of one cliffside, allowing me to routinely damage at least half of the robots on the field with a single explosive headshot. Basically, the more compact the group, the better the AoE classes will perform. With all that said, I'm now going to immediately write off Manhattan, Rottenburg, and Manworks as viable maps. Each of them have 2 different spawn points which are very far away from each other, in which there are plenty of occasions where robots will spawn simultaneously. This neuters the damage output of the sniper as he's only able to focus down one side at a time. So that leaves us with 3 maps to choose from: Coal Town, Decoy, and Big Rock. Once again, this is where we're going to fixate on mob density. Coal Town has 3 separate spawn points that make up a total of 4 explosive headshot radiuses. Decoy is in a similar boat. 3 spawns, 4 headshot radiuses. Big Rock, on the other hand, has 1 spawn. 1 tiny little bite-sized cave that houses the entirety of Greyman's Armageddon, containing the radius of just a single explosive headshot. You never need to move your crosshair beyond this hole in the wall. It is, quite literally, tunnel vision. I think it's safe to say we found ourselves a good campsite. Okay, we have our class, we have our weapons, and we have our robot packs more dense than your average Twitter user. But what about our strategy? How can we make this combination work as efficiently as possible? The answer is right in front of us. No, seriously. It's the Big Rock. Let me explain. Robot AI is heavily influenced based on something known as navigation mesh. It's the determining factor in how a robot chooses where to move and who to shoot. To demonstrate it, we can look at this video. Now let's pretend for a moment that this character is not a player, but a robot. The blue squares represent where the robot is able to see and therefore attack, whereas the green squares are considered out of the robot's line of sight, even if they don't appear as such. These areas will update with every sequential movement the robot makes, and this applies to every walkable surface in the game. All except for the Big Rock. Because your position doesn't update, the robots will treat the last part of the ground you are on as your current location. If that piece of the floor is considered out of the robot's line of sight, you won't be attacked. For example, if I jump onto the rock from back here, the robots don't target me until they wrap all the way around it. But if I jump on the rock from over here, I'll be mowed down immediately. This little oversight led to the development of one of the most overpowered tactics in the entirety of MvM. If you snipe from this rock, you're pretty much invincible. You never get targeted. This is especially useful for snipers specifically because he has an absurdly high aggro stat compared to the other classes. That's what keeps him in check. The knowledge that, yes, explosive headshots are absolutely insane, so the robots are programmed to turn you into their rocket pincushion, making using them exuberantly not an option. That ever-present threat of being steamrolled by a torrent of projectiles just doesn't exist on Big Rock. And not only that, but you're granted an incredible sightline into the one and only spawn room, alongside full immunity to those pesky Frenchmen. It's gotten to the point where if someone notices a high-tour sniper is on their team, many players opt to just park the dispenser right next to him rather than share it with the 4 other teammates, because the sniper alone will make better use of it than all the other classes combined. I'm not kidding when I say that a good enough sniper can almost solo the entire game. All he needs is an NG buddy to pick off the stragglers, sentry block whenever necessary, provide infinite ammo with the dispenser, and gun down the tanks whenever they show up. But other than that, this is a one-man game. Seeing this shit firsthand gives me deja vu from when I recorded with the cheaters. Oh, and by the way, if you want to know why I attribute the Gaspasser hatred not entirely to the effects on gameplay, this is why. This strategy quite literally allows your entire team to go AFK, and yet I've never seen anyone get kicked for doing this, ever. I'm just saying, if you think undeserved kills are an action worthy of scorn, holy shit. So now we have everything necessary to breeze through the game. The only question is, what mission do we actually play? Well, we're not the most spoiled for choice on Big Rock, with only 3 potential options. Now personally, my Chad-like DNA doesn't mesh well with the kangaroo genes that placate the Aussies, but luckily I managed to get in contact with a Big Rock sniping enthusiast. Seriously, this guy runs like 5 tours a day. Needless to say, he's an expert in this field, so I asked him for some stats regarding his typical experiences, as well as played a couple rounds with him. Here's what we came up with. These are the missions, these are the average ranges of all the robots that will be killed, and these are the times I recorded for each individual mission. If we divide the amount of robots by the average amount of time spent in each mission, we find that Broken Parts has the slight edge on the average amount of robot kills per minute, solidifying it as the best choice for farming this achievement. And with that final piece of the puzzle solved, we now have everything we need to figure out how long this achievement will take. So to complete Metal Massacre as optimally as possible, we'll need to do 1,081 full completions of Broken Parts, which will clock in at 28,631 minutes, or about 477 hours, or nearly 20 straight days of non-stop farming. So there it is. With enough preparation, skill, and hot pockets, Chad can complete this achievement in under a month. This might be a steep climb, but nonetheless, Chad is happy, because unlike his collection of memes, the achievement portrait will no longer be gray. Also, Great Blue, your mascot bird is ugly and you can subtract 800 hours from this total. You're welcome. Anyways, like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel, follow my Twitter, join the Discord, and that's all I got. See ya.